Mom had Alzheimer's. It's a terrible, terrible disease. It attacks the brain cells, and you lose your memory, you lose your motor skills. Last months of my mom's life, it was nothing for us to walk into her room at the nursing home and find her on the floor. Very disturbing at first for me. The doctor pulled us aside as a family, and he said, this is very common with Alzheimer's patients. They just want to be on the ground. He said, we could constrain her in the bed, but she'll end up hurting herself. Or we can lower her bed all the way to the floor and put a mat on the floor. So that's what we agreed to do. I'd go in to see Mom. There she'd be on the floor. I was uncomfortable with that. I mean, does life have to get this messy, really? So I would pick her up. She only weighed about 70 pounds. I'd put her back in the bed, and I'd tuck her in, and I'd kiss her on the cheek. But 3 or 4 minutes later, she'd be back on the floor. So finally, I just decided, you know what? Life is going to be this messy, and I'm going to deal with it, and I'm going to go with it. So I loaded some music on my phone. My mother loved gospel music. And I went into her room, and I got on the mat with her. I stroked her hair, and I held her in my arms, and I sang gospel music. For over an hour, I just sang to her, and when I would, that agitated look in her face, that despair in her eyes would soften, and I'd see my mom again. That wasn't my mom, but I'd see her come back. I'd finish singing, and she would tap me on the arm until I'd start singing again. I can remember just singing songs of the faith. I can remember the one that stood out to me. These were the words, because he lives, I can face tomorrow. Because he lives, all fear is gone. Because I know he holds the future. Life is worth living just because he lives. And when I would sing that, I would notice the presence of God would come in on her. And I would watch the peace of God touch her, and she would settle down. And that's where I began to understand that when you walk through the darkest hours of your life, you got to learn to worship. When you're walking through the darkest seasons, you got to learn to pray. Now, I'm not talking about get in and get out. I'm talking about stay in. Could it be that's why Jesus said to the disciples, could you not tarry an hour? It wasn't because he needed to hear us for an hour. It's because we needed to settle down and settle in so we could press in and press through. That's what I learned holding my mom.